What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Zoids video. So I know I said the next Zoids video would be about the lightning sykes, and I did intend for that to be the case, but I've been being lazy and I didn't want to bring its box out of storage, so I need to just hurry up and do that and get it out of the way so you guys can see that. But in the meantime, I recently purchased two new Zoids from a member of the Zoids collectors group who was selling them, and they were two that I've never owned before, so I decided to go ahead and do a review of these two. So, shout out to John William D. for selling me these two, as well as he sold quite a few other Hasbro ones. Of course, the Saber Tiger was the only motorized one that I really cared about. He had quite a few wind-up ones, and I just decided to go with the Cannon Tortoise. He had a gun sniper as well that I kind of wanted, but I've never been too keen on the gun sniper, as you guys know, if you know my history with Zoids. So let's go ahead and get into it and talk about these guys. So these are both the 2002 Hasbro releases, and we have one wind up and one motorized. So let's go ahead and start with the Cannon Tortoise. So let's take a look at the box really quick. So he sent me these with their boxes broken down. Thankfully, he still had their boxes, and they are in really good shape, so that is really cool. I always love it when, you know, I see somebody else's collection and everything is still in really good shape. So that was greatly appreciated, especially for the price that he sold these for was pretty good. So, and here's the Cannon Tortoise itself. So he actually sent me these kits in baggies, completely unassembled. Now, obviously, he had assembled them when he owned them, but he completely disassembled them in order to sell them to me, which is really cool. I opened up the baggies and basically had the opportunity to build them from scratch, which I didn't have the opportunity to do with the Hellcat, D-Bison, and Dark Spiner that I bought at the Super Happy Fun Sale 2 years ago. So, again, it's a little wind-up kit, and it's a little bit on the dusty side. I try to take some canned air and blow some of the dust off of this guy, and I did so to great effect, but at the same time, he still has quite a bit of dust left on him. But I actually think that kind of complements the look of this particular Zoid. It makes it look that much more weathered and just kind of rugged looking, which I think definitely benefits it. So the Cannon Tortoise, as it is, goes all the way back to the original 1983 Zoid series under the same name and mostly the same color scheme too. So it was the exact same model kit in 1983 as it is right here. But the difference being is that the 1983 Cannon Tortoise had a slightly different color scheme. The OD green portions, such as the head and the feet, were a much brighter green. So I actually kind of prefer the color scheme of the Hasbro version, the 1999 Takara Tomy and the 2002 Hasbro version. It's has a little bit more darker earth colors, and it just makes it look that much more tough looking and very rugged, worn, weathered military style look. So, and he does have a wind-up motor, which doesn't work too well. Like, we tried to get him to walk in at night, and he tried, but he is a slow tortoise. In terms of other features, obviously you have the cockpit with the Android pilot. These cockpit designs were pretty much a staple of the 80s line. You didn't have many Zoids that had the eyes like the Saber Tiger does. The cannon moves up and down. You can see a little bit of detail inside the cannon as well. It's a little bit dusty inside of there. And then he has two other guns on either side, which can potentially rotate a little bit. And then he has another really cool feature, which is the back. There's a hatch on the back of the Zoid that opens, which I'm assuming would be for infantry to deploy out of, because this guy is sort of like a tank. So in terms of storyline purposes with the Cannon Tortoise, nothing really noteworthy in the original Zoid story, but in the 1987 Spider-Man and Zoids Marvel comics that were released in the UK, the Cannon Tortoise had a little bit of prevalence there and was named Cannon with a K, and that was the character's name. But I can't really speak too much on that. So, as far as the anime goes, in Chaotic Century and Guardian Force, the Cannon Tortoise was pretty prolific as one of the main infantry Zoids of the Helix Republic Army, and it was essentially a slow-moving, kind of slow-moving cannon fodder type Zoid that made up the bulk of their light infantry, such as this and the Godos as well. Definitely not nearly as big or powerful as something like a Command Wolf or a Shield Liger, but it was good for carrying troops, and the artillery power on it was pretty good in large numbers. So you could have a whole squad of these things gang up on something like a Darkhorn or a Iron Kong and hopefully take it down after some. But it's basically the Republic equivalent or rival to like the Mulga. Unfortunately, it's a pretty small, light infantry type Zoid. So other than that, no other major anime appearances. It did appear in New Century Zero as Harry Champ's one of his Zoids that he used, and he tried to attach like a super railgun on it, which I don't think worked out in his favor very well, if I remember correctly. So the Cannon Tortoise did get some other kits as well. So the Cannon Tortoise did get an HMM, and I do own it. Here is the HMM Cannon Tortoise. I can barely fit the whole box in the frame because the HMM boxes are much bigger. Because it has more pieces, therefore bigger sheets. I really love the artwork on this because you can see infantry running around and setting up for some kind of attack. You can see multiple Cannon Tortoise walking around and deploying out of these pods right here. So you can kind of see the Zoid and its intended purpose. You can see a couple of Terrace up there. So this, along with the Terrace and the Godos, is the primary bulk of the Republic's army. The light infantry. Yeah, but I have not built the HMM Cannon Tortoise yet. This is an older HMM because it has the old red and blue Zoids logo as opposed to the silver one that we got with some of the newer HMMs. But I will build this guy eventually and do an entire video on him. So that about covers the Cannon Tortoise. Now on to the Saber Tiger, or as it's known, regrettably in English, the Zaber Fang. So that was one of those localization decisions that was like, oh, everything's going to start with a Z, so it's got to be called a Zaber Fang. And so it was. So this particular one, again, it shows it as a Godless Empire Zoid, which is true. However, this particular model, which was the only motorized Zaber Fang released in English, well, not the only one, I shouldn't say that, but this was the only one released in the initial Zoids line, is the yellow one. So it's technically not a Chaotic Century, Godless Empire Zoid. It's a one used for recreational or tournament purposes in New Century Zero. So this was the primary Zoid of the Tigers team, which debuted in the very, very first episode of New Century Zero, and I think they appeared a couple other times after that. So if I can, this is, I think, what most fans to consider to be the iconic Saber Tiger design is the yellow. Me, on the other hand, I recognize it, of course, as iconic, but I kind of do not care for it too much, to be honest. I actually do not like the yellow because I've gotten so used to seeing the red as the standard, and I do have the red Modeler Spirit Series Saber Tiger as well, which I'll show off. So I got used to that being the standard, and then we have, obviously the other red one, which was Raven's version, and then we have the Great Saber, which is black and red, and then you have another black, red, and silver one that was the Karl Schubalt Special Saber Tiger. So there's quite a few variants of this Zoid throughout the different series. This is another one that has been around since. This one's been around since 1987, if I remember correctly. This was still part of the 80s line, but it was part of like Zoids 2, I think, along with the Shield Liger and some of those other Zoids. And it, I think, was either just called Zaber in the UK. I think that's what it was called in the UK. And again, the kit has remained mostly unchanged throughout all the years. So we'll talk about some of the weapons on it. So it has a cannon on the top here that has the twin barrel blaster, which doesn't really deal a whole lot of damage in Battle Legends or any of the Versus games. It's a pretty weak starting weapon. It has a 3-barrel cannon on top of that. They all fire simultaneously in the game. This weapon right here, the 3-barrel cannon, is kind of a staple of a lot of Empire Zoids. You'll see this on the Red Horn. As well as these cannons right here, you'll see that on the Red Horn as well. This is like a sensor relay up here, which is also seen on the Red Horn kit, which I've shown off before. So that's not really part of the weapon. It's more of like like I said, a sensor relay or a communications array. And then these two weapons down here underneath the 3-barrel shot cannon are also on the Red Horn. This one being underneath the Red Horn's chin, and then this is, I'm not sure if this is even a weapon at all, but we see that on a lot of Empire Zoids. So quite a bit of firepower here, but none of which really deal all that much damage. So there are no batteries in this kit right now, and building this guy was really interesting because I really liked how everything fit together, especially how the legs were built to function with the motorized kit. It really makes you realize how ingenious these things were designed, even back in the 80s, to be motorized. But obviously I'm not going to do the motorized feature because I don't want to put batteries in something so old. He's got little guns on his tail as well. He's got a little nub tail which does not articulate in any kind of way. It's pretty much stagnant. And his teeth look really good, although I do wish these were either die cast or just had some metallic paint put on them at least. Whereas the Takara Tomy Blade Liger that I have, that I've already shown off, which is the same scale as this, it's a motorized kit, has die cast metal teeth and feet. But that's kind of I admit that that's kind of a luxury. That's not something that every kit should have, especially not the English ones. So the cockpit on this one opens to the front and reveals the blue Android pilot. With the Takara Tomy and Hasbro releases for these Zoids, the Android pilots were always blue on the Empire Zoids, and they were always like gray on the Republic Zoids, always. So even though this does not have any of the colors of the other Godless Empire Zoids, you can tell it's a bad guy, quote unquote, by the blue pilot. So that was true with like the Rev Raptor my brother owned as a kid, and the Red Horn that I have, and the Hellcat. So I'm going to do a size comparison in a second, but I wanted to show off briefly that I also own, and this is not going to fit in the frame at all, I also own the, wow, I'm going to have to take the camera out a bit to see this. I also own the HMM Great Saber. You guys have seen this before. This is the one I got at Anime Expo and had to have carefully packed on my travel back because I almost couldn't fit him on the plane with me. But I got him for a good price at Anime Expo, and I'm really looking forward to building this guy. The artwork on this box is just fantastic. You can see this guy just tearing through a bunch of shield loggers, and they're just helpless to stop this thing. It has the assault unit, which is not a good weapon either. It uses mostly missiles. And we see that in Zoids Battle Legends and Versus 3, that the assault unit is not a great weapon. Let me try to rotate the box around. And we can see some of these other shots of the Great Saber. There's incredible detail in this guy. The scale looks really nice with the different weapons, and the feet look really good. The face looks really good with the claws. That is awesome. Can't wait to build that guy. Okay, so lastly we have a size comparison between the Hasbro motorized Zaber Fang kit and the Takara Tomy Modeler Spirit Series Saber Tiger. As you can see, the Modeler Spirit Series is much smaller because this is 1/72nd scale and this is 1 in 1/44th scale, which I've established before in previous videos, but just in case you never saw the video about this guy, if I can get the camera to focus, he is incredibly detailed. The build quality on these guys is, as I've said before, it's basically the equivalent of a, what do they call that? The Gundams that are, real grade, that's it, the real grade Gundams. So it's the size of a high grade, but the build quality of a master grade or whatever. So, again, you have the cockpit. I never took the Android pilot out for the Modeler Spirit Series because it was so small, I was worried I was going to lose it. So this look for the Saber Tiger is how I usually envision them. And some of the things that I wish kind of looked better on the Hasbro version, like the way the head is positioned looks a lot, and the way the shoulders are stanced out looks a lot more natural on the Modeler Spirit Series version. So, and these cannons right here kind of come up over his shoulders, whereas right here they're just barely clearing the side of his face, so it doesn't really seem like they'd be all that effective that way. Cannon underneath looks fine. I have the weapons reversed on the Hasbro version. And the cannon up top Again, the articulation on the Modeler Spirit series is just so much better because you can actually, you know, articulate this in any different direction you want. And I'm not going to fully articulate it, but it's on a hinge where you can point it down and actually, whoops, and there I go, popping it off. But essentially, it's on a hinge where you can get it pointing in any direction you'd like. So, all right, so that is it for the Hasbro 2002 wind-up cannon tortoise and the motorized Zaber Fang. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next Zoids video, and keep checking out my channel for more updates about Zoids Wild, which is coming out later this year.